got a bidet.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we have the next Shoot the Sheev podcast for you, and we are focusing on the Galaxy's Edge amusement park section at Disney World and Disneyland. If you have not figured it out from our pictures, this is where you can actually go and be immersed in a Star Wars experience at a Disney park. There is another thing you can do in conjunction with Galaxy's Edge. That is the like Starfighter Hotel or whatever it's called, where you get to do like a 2-day experience. But for this video, we're going to focus on Galaxy's Edge. Simply enough, we have not shelled out thousands of dollars to go on the 2-night experience. So we want to share with you just some solid information on Galaxy's Edge and just tell you about our experiences. And yeah, so let's kind of kick it off. We're talking about Galaxy's Edge. This came out a little while ago. I'd say a good handful of years. When Disney first started thinking about, bringing Star Wars to their parks, well, I guess I should back that up. They've already had Star Wars there for a little bit. George Lucas did do a partnership with Disney where they brought something called Star Tours to Disney World, and I believe it's at Disneyland. We've only experienced it at Disney World, but the idea for that ride is that it was basically kind of like a screen ride simulator thing where you're sitting in something, and then most of the experience is on a screen, and then the actual thing that you're sitting in is moved around so that it feels like you're actually experiencing what's on the screen. It was filled with cool different things, not only in the show, but it also had things where, like when you're in line, you got to experience almost like a life-size walker outside. It was like indoor. They also have a little thing next to the entrance where they have characters come out and do little skits, sometimes with young ones, which are pretty funny if you actually look those up on YouTube. Some of the kids go AWOL and it's great. But that was like their first little venture into having Star Wars at the Disney parks. And then it came around to when Disney actually bought Star Wars from George Lucas, and they wanted to put their own spin on things. And so they had this idea to bring an entire section to one of their parks to be Star Wars themed. I know, like in the beginning of all the different discussions of what to do with the park, a lot of the designers were thinking, well, are we going to pull from the original trilogy? Are we going to pull from the prequels? Are we going to focus on a planet? Are we going to focus on highlights throughout the movies? What characters are we going to feature and stuff like that? And basically, Bob Iger came in and said, none of those things. You're going to focus on the sequel trilogy. So Galaxy's Edge does have a focus on the sequel trilogy, and they're starting to, bring more characters in that aren't just like Rey, Finn, Chewbacca, Kylo Ren, another big one. They're starting to bring more people in, like Boba and Mandalorian. He's actually a most recent addition to the park. They're starting to trickle down that way, which is pretty cool. But yeah, this is branched off in Hollywood Studios, and let's see.
It's based off the planet Batuu, which
Yeah.
they created just for this theme park. I don't think we've really seen it, or maybe it's been referenced a time or two in the films, but if it is, it's never one that they've really ventured to. It's maybe just, somebody said it in like one of the episodes or something. I feel like somebody said it somewhere.
I don't know. I know, like, before the expansion became part of the park, it had not been mentioned. Like, this was a whole fresh new planet that the Imagineers put together themselves. But once it was released, then they started, talking about Batu a little bit. I can't remember if it's in the show. Maybe it was, casually mentioned at some point. But they've definitely done books. I know they do like Tales of Galaxy's Edge and stuff like that, to kind of
Might
further the lore.
I might be thinking of that or The Sims. That game actually came out
Mhm.
with a Batu section too, so that might be what I'm confusing it with, just because I know they've done that.
Yeah, that's actually another good mention. The Sims and EA partnered with Lucasfilm to bring Galaxy's Edge to their Sims platform, and so you can actually experience a little bit of Star Wars magic with Batu if you play Sims. We got it, and I tried it out, and wasn't quite my thing. My sister, which has been on the channel before, she really enjoys The Sims. I'm sure she'd probably have a blast with it, but I just couldn't get into it. It's not for everybody. But yeah, that's a cool way to interact with it as well. Um, there's also recently, like within the last year or two, I believe, they had a Galaxy's Edge virtual reality game come out for, I think, the Oculus. And then with the new PSVR 2, it will be coming over to PlayStation as well. We missed it by this much because we have a PlayStation VR, but based on that price tag, I don't think we're going to get the new one anytime soon. It's kind of hard to vouch for a extension to a system that costs more than the system. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I'm gonna take a second and just kind of talk about the aesthetics of that area, kind of what you see, what you hear, what it looks like.
Yeah.
So it goes kind of between the old Star Wars Ride of Star Tours, which is still there, and it loops back over to the Toy Story area, Toy Story Mania, and the Slinky Dog Dash. At least for Disney World. I can't really speak to Disneyland since I haven't been there, but in Disney World, that's how that area is kind of structured. So it's very much like a giant hallway or a path, if you will. There's some side areas to go into for sure, but it's not very open, I don't think. There's some spots that are even just plain tunnels in the caves, which is kind of cool because it's like you're journeying to some other area. Um, there's different marketplaces. It's a lot of it carved out of stone, or at least it looks like it's carved out of stone. Um, there's a lot of rainforest type looking plants and smells, with the humidity of Florida. And I remember one of the times we were there, it was raining. So a lot of the cast members were in indoor style rain jackets. And I thought that was really cool. I asked them if I could buy one, and they said no.
Darn. Work there for a day.
But
I will add on because you mentioned, how it's connected to two sections of the park and how it's kind of like a tunnel almost. I feel like when you enter Galaxy's Edge, you can't really look around to like behind you or anything and it not feel like Star Wars because once you're there, it's like you are there. It's not like, oh, there's Star Wars, and you turn around and there's Toy Story. Because I think it's like a curve or a bend around to actually get into the Star Wars area. So that's really cool how they do that. They make you actually feel fully immersed and not just, part of an amusement park, so to speak.
I think that's following kind of Disney's like Walt Disney's original wish for the parks is that you feel like you're there. So even back when he was alive and he was designing the other parts of the parks and wanting the skyline to be either the sky or part of the park, so you're not like seeing highways behind the park or anything like that. You feel like you are fully immersed in whatever section of the park that you're in.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. Um, Yeah, because now that you say that, you really can't see any of that stuff once you're at Disney. Probably because they own so much property that they're able to get away with that. Some other aesthetic things that I'm not sure I heard you mention. There's life-size ships everywhere, which you can see in my picture. Here the Millennium Falcon. That is life-size when you go to the park, and I believe there's an X-wing. Kylo Ren's ship. Let's see. I think it. No, he was in another picture I was gonna pick, but this guy over here, that one is somewhere landed. Oh, and an A-wing. I remember that as well. You cannot like walk up to and touch the vehicles, so to speak. But you can get very, very close. You can kind of see for the Falcon, if I move over in my picture, there is a guardrail there where you cannot go past. Um,
They do have a speeder bike though that you can get on and take pictures with.
mhm.
That's been there pre-Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, I can't remember if it's because okay, so a little backstory. When one of the first times Sarah and I actually went, right outside of the Star Tours area where we were talking that kind of got an Endor aesthetic to it. There was a speeder bike outside where you could sit on it and take a picture. Now, I don't know if since they've brought Galaxy's Edge in, if they've moved that speeder or if it's still there. That I don't remember.
I feel
But
like we saw it last time, so whether it's in that exact same spot or not, I don't know, but I think it's still somewhere around there.
yeah, I would hope it's still in that area because that type of speeder bike I associate with Endor. So, that'd be like the perfect place to keep it. Um, yeah. So for the rest of the podcast, this is kind of like the intro of what's going on. We want to actually deep dive a little bit too for you and talk about some different experiences, merchandise, rides, all that good stuff. We will be right back. We're going to take a short break and we'll get into that. So see you in a second. Have you seen The Mandalorian? Do you wonder what Operation Cinder was that they mentioned in this show? Well, we got you covered because we have an entire playlist dedicated to the Star Wars Battlefront 2 campaign, which highlights Operation Cinder. So if you check out our playlist, you'll be able to see what actually happened with Operation Cinder and know what they're talking about with the show. Now back to ours. Okay, now we're back. This next little part, we're going to focus on the rides of Galaxy's Edge. Now, currently, there are 2 rides. When it opened, I believe there was only one that was officially open, and then the other one was under construction. The first ride that came to Galaxy's Edge was Flight of the Falcon. I think that's what it's called. Oh no, it's called Smuggler's Run. Flight of the Falcon is an old video game where you fly the Falcon. This is called Smuggler's Run. This ride is actually, right where the Falcon is. What's really cool about it is basically you go into the building here that's behind my head. I'm having a lot of directional challenges here with my picture. But basically you go in towards that building. The wait times do tend to be long, so get there at a good time. But you go in this line, and the line is filled with different things to look at that are Star Wars oriented, which is super cool. It's definitely got that Disney magic of making you feel like you're in basically a Star Wars junk shop, so to speak, and you're seeing all these droids and pieces of different vehicles just hanging around everywhere. It's a great time. It's a great thing, a bunch of great stuff to look at while you're there. But
Flight
eventually,
suits hanging on coat racks.
yeah, flight suits hanging on coat racks. Um, Eventually, you do make your way to what feels like you're going into the Millennium Falcon. I say that because unfortunately, your ride isn't exactly in the one that's on display, but you do get to walk through an area where it's like you're walking through the Millennium Falcon, which is super cool. Um, you start to make your way to the Falcon. You are talked to by, I believe, Hondo or Hondu. I think it's Hondo. And basically, he has a mission for you to go get some items, and then it's your job as a group to go get it, smuggle it out, and then get back to him. So this ride consists of 6 different people. So if your group is less than six, you will be partnered with other people. If your group is more than six, you will be split up. So just a heads up there. Um, when you're walking through, you will be going through the Falcon itself. So you will like all that stuff that you remember from the films. You will be living and breathing it. That's probably one of the best parts of this ride, in my opinion, because you'll be sitting in line and then you'll be able to take in all your surroundings of the Millennium Falcon. It's a phenomenal experience. But eventually, once you're walking through, you will get to an area where you'll see some Disney cast members. Well, they'll be positioning you on different spots on the floor, which are going to tell you what your job is on the Falcon. And so there's pilot, there's gunner, and there's what was the third one? A separate gunner? I feel like that's all.
Well, because there's six spots, right? So one person can fly left and right. One person can fly up and down. So there's two pilots.
Right, two pilots.
Then there's, I believe, two gunners, a left and a right. And I want to say the other two people are the ones who aim the guns.
Uh, I, I think it's the missiles because there is a missile part of the
Oh,
job.
it's the engineer. They're the engineer.
So what did the engineer do? Were they the tow cable people to get the
They
loop?
basically handled anything that's not shooting or flying.
Oh well,
So
yeah,
they had miscellaneous buttons and triggers and switches to do. I think, certain buttons would light up on the screen and they'd have to find them and push them and things like that.
gotcha. So my job was to be one of the gunners. So that's how I remember that. I wanted to be a pilot. I didn't get my choice. You do not get a, so if you're mixed with another group, you don't get a choice unless you like probably ask the other people in your group if you want a specific job. If it's all sick to your group, well then yeah, you can fight over what you want. But me, I didn't want to take away flight from somebody because I thought that'd be the coolest part.
Well,
Um,
and at the point that we went to, the ride was still very new. So most people hadn't ridden it before. It was hard to get spots to even be able to ride the ride.
yeah. Let's see. So once you're situated with all that good stuff, then you go into the ride, and you're sitting in the cockpit of the Falcon. It looks again phenomenal. It looks just like you would expect it to, and your ride begins. You all of you have your different jobs. Like Sarah was mentioning, the pilots they kind of have a joystick that they have to maneuver. So on the screen, it'll uh, be telling them different directions to go, and they have to like pull in that direction to hopefully avoid collisions. Uh, there's the gunners, which when the TIE fighters and all them show up, you're the people that have to push the highlighted buttons on the wall to be able to take care of them. Same thing with the engineers. Very, very similar with colored buttons that light up and flash and whatnot. But essentially, oh, did you
I
have
was just
something?
gonna say this is very much a an indoor ride. Like once you're in the cockpit, you're just in that one room. You will feel the cockpit like vibrate as if you're flying and like it kind of moves side to side a little bit, or maybe it tilts up and backwards a little bit, but it's not one that you're not like on a track, you're not on a roller coaster. It's not like Toy Story Mania where your cart's actually moving all over the place. It's very much a simulated experience, which is still very cool because there's screens everywhere, so it looks like you are flying. It doesn't look like you're just standing still. But like there's no risk of your sunglasses falling off, for example, because you're just in a little room. You're not on a roller coaster.
Right. It's kind of like a more enhanced version of Star Tours in a way, where you actually get more stuff to do. Um,
Much more interactive.
your job is to, be timely with your button pushing and be accurate with your flying maneuvers. And hopefully, you're able to get Hondo's loot and bring the Falcon back in one piece. When you're leaving the ride, it looks like you're the only ones in the Falcon, and I say that for a reason. I'll get to that in a second. And so then you're on your merry way. So the whole time that you're experiencing the Falcon ride, like once you actually enter the Falcon, you feel very much like it's just your crew on this ship. And it's actually because of some Disney magic and Disney Imagineer smartness with how they make the ride work. I don't really want to spoil that part here on the channel, just because, if you talk about the technical things with it, that might take away from the Disney magic. But I will say, if you have Disney Plus, they go in depth on the ride itself and how it works. So check that out if you want to see more about the technical things and actually see how all this stuff happens. Again, super cool, really interesting. But if you don't want the magic ruined or taken away from you, you can pass on it. There is one more ride. Sarah, do you want to tell them about Rise of the Resistance?
Yeah, so this one, when we went through it, we actually had to wake up super early to get in the online queue to get a return time for it. It's not like that anymore for this particular ride, but I know they do still use that function for other rides that are brand new. But once you're there, the line kind of goes back and forth through these caves, which is nice because it's super hot in Florida, so the caves kind of keep it pretty cool. Um, there's some things to look at here and there, kind of like the Smuggler's Run. I don't remember anything that was too crazy memorable, but at least it wasn't like just standing in a hallway bored with nothing to look at. Um, you go
Uh,
on to,
I say eventually there's some really cool stuff to see on this, like in the um, actually getting to the ride part of it. There's some cool things. I don't.
I was just about to talk about the shuttle.
Okay, yep, go
Okay.
ahead. I was about to
So
say, yeah, I guess outside there's not a whole lot to look at, but once you start getting into the ship stuff,
once you're done with your hour-long ride, or ride, sorry, the
eh,
wait time,
wait.
an hour-long ride would be awesome. No, once you're done with your hour-long wait time or however long it is, you get to this shuttle, and it's kind of like a a s- there's how do you describe it? I don't even know. It's like a shuttle bus, but it's not a shuttle bus, right? It's a Star Wars version. You feel
Star
like
Wars shuttle bus.
um and the doors close and you've got, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 people in there with you or something like that, and you see, do you remember who drives it?
It's not Akbar, but it's another um person that is the same species, Mon Calamari, but not
Ah,
Akbar.
okay. Do you want to dive into the actual storyline of the shuttle? Because I don't super remember that great.
Basically, you're just supposed to be on a little trip, I believe, around the galaxy or something. And then when you take off, the First Order stops you guys and then pulls you in uh, with their tractor beam, and then you're taken in custody by the First Order.
Ah, that's right. Okay. So that little shuttle ride is over because you've been captured by the First Order, and all the cast members are of the they're all Imperials. Did I say that right?
First Orders.
They're all First Order troopers and people in charge. Goodness, I am struggling with words today. Uh officers, that's the word I was looking for. Troopers and officers. So they very much will treat you as if you are a rebel in the First Order base. They do not like you. You need to tell them what information you have. Stand up straight, stand in line, don't get out of line, don't walk around, that like that kind of thing. It's not that they're like super mean or anything, but I mean they're there to give you the experience, and I think they do a pretty good job of that. They put you in groups of say 5 or 6 people, I believe, and then you go in these little waiting areas where it's just your group of 5 or 6, and at one point, do I spoil the thing that happens in that waiting room?
Well, I was gonna say when you get boarded and then they take you into custody, The first thing that you see is like you're in the Star Destroyer and you see a squad of stormtroopers. Like there's a ton of them. Um, and then you are going to be put into like a holding cell for the First Order, and then that's when the ride really gets going. That's kind of where you left off.
I didn't know if I was supposed to spoil what happened when you're in the holding cell.
Yeah,
Okay. So
that's
when
the
you're
whole
on
point of the ride.
the one thing that I remember from the holding cell is that you hear some commotion and then all of a sudden you see a lightsaber coming down from the ceiling and it's Kylo Ren's lightsaber. So it's
Oh,
scary.
no, no,
Like,
you're jumping ahead quite a bit. Um, the you're getting broke out by the resistance, and you have to go sit in the cart. And so there,
before the cart.
no, it's not before the cart. That was in the cart because Kylo Ren doesn't even know you're escaping yet.
Why don't you tell us how it happened?
Um, so you're in the holding cell, and then the resistance people break you out, and you're supposed to go into these carts, and the carts are controlled by a droid, and the droid is trying to get you out of the place. And so Kylo Ren and General Hux find out you're trying to escape, and you are taken into uh, a hangar where there is a walker, and you can go one of two ways. One of the ways takes you like up and away on the ground level from the walker, and the other one takes you up and then up, like elevated, so that you're right in front of the walker's face. We do see Finn in this scene where he's trying to distract the First Order and help you guys get out. Um, but eventually you are able to evade them, and then that's when you're kind of like in the elevator and you see Kylo Ren's lightsaber come through the ceiling and he's trying to stop you guys. And then um, eventually you make it to the bridge where Kylo Ren wants to stop you again. He like puts his hand out to force stop you, and you're feeling the jerkiness of your cart being pulled around because it's kind of like the cart is fighting the force, so to speak. But then the resistance is out in the space area trying to stop the First Order and save you. And so they blast part of the bridge where Kylo Ren, is feeling the suction power and he's distracted, and you're able to get away from him. And then you head towards an area with the escape pods, and you board an escape pod. You feel a big drop, like your stomach feels like you dropped, and then you fly back down to the planet Batu. So, yeah, those are the two rides that are currently there, but
One
hopefully
thing
we
that
got more coming.
One thing that's cool about the Rise of the Resistance ride is if there weren't already many things that are cool, is that it's a trackless ride. There is no track. It's just a big like warehouse floor in terms of where the cart goes.
Right. So it just looks like you're in the Star Destroyer, and your thing is moving like they intend it to. I think there's only one other ride that's like that, being the Mickey and Minnie one. There's two other ones?
Ratatouille.
Oh, that's right. That's new. Last time we were there, we didn't get to go on that. So yes, Ratatouille is there too. But it's a very cool technology that they're moving towards, and hopefully they get to do more rides like that in the future. But those are the two rides that they have so far, and so we look forward to more if they're able to start building more. But we will be talking about food next, right after this. Have you ever wondered what Amazon coffins are and what they're full of? Well, we got you covered here on the channel. Check out our playlist of our Amazon coffin unboxings, where Sarah and I open up boxes that have Amazon returns, and we share with all of you what we get in each of those boxes. If you ever wanted to get into liquidation and want to know what types of things you can find, check us out. Now back to our show. All right, we are back, and we are talking about the food from Galaxy's Edge now. We've experienced a little bit of the food, not a crazy amount, but they do have some pretty cool concoctions in Galaxy's Edge. A couple of things to note. There's probably like three or four eating places that you can go at Galaxy's Edge. Um, one of them is a Ronto place. So Ronto is a creature from uh, Star Wars, and that's probably one of the most open places you can go to because I think the other two that I can think of are indoors, but this one's outdoors. It's actually really cool because you kind of see the cook making your food. Um, there is a pod racer engine that is being used to heat what is a Ronto in the middle of the place. It's like the creature of your food. So it's kind of like uh, a pig roast where you see somebody making an entire pig at one time. It's the same aesthetic, but they're using pod racer engines to cook the meat, which is kind of funny. But they are known for Ronto wraps, I believe. Have not eaten there yet at Galaxy's Edge, but we have had the ability to walk through it. That is on our itinerary to go sometime soon. So hopefully we can get back to you on how good that food tastes at some point. There is another place called Docking Bay, was it 7? Docking Bay 7 is just kind of another sit-in place. They have a couple other probably different food choices than the Ronto place, and the third one that we're going to talk about in a minute. They do have main course foods, sides, drinks, all that good stuff. Some of the aesthetics are pretty neat in there as well. We have not eaten there, but I've had friends that have eaten there before, and they have said they enjoyed it. So it's probably a good place to check out. There is what this isn't a restaurant, but per se, but in the middle of the Galaxy's Edge area, there is a like little market walkway. So if you're thinking about like the movie Aladdin with the market, that's kind of what it looks like, but Star Wars version. And if you're familiar with the Bad Batch, there we are. If you're familiar with the Bad Batch, in one of the episodes, Omega is seen eating something that resembles popcorn. And they actually have this at Galaxy's Edge if you would like to try it. It's like I said, it's in that little market area. You cannot miss it. It's like the stand with a whole bunch of popcorn. So if you're looking for experience something you've seen on film, definitely check that out. We have not tried it yet, but maybe there's a first in our future. Something else that's really cool that you can get at Galaxy's Edge, again, that references directly from the movie, is the blue and green milk. So, blue milk we saw in A New Hope when Luke is eating, I want to say, dinner with his aunt and uncle, and he's got his little cup there and he's drinking his blue milk. And then there's also green milk, which is from The Last Jedi. Ironically, it's again Luke drinking the milk, but he gets it from a creature from Octo 2. He gets green milk. Something interesting about that drink in particular is that you can get an alcoholic version and a non-alcoholic version. It is filled with citrus, like different fruits and stuff, and then also some milk content. So just kind of be aware of what you can and cannot consume with that. But there is one other pretty major attraction at Galaxy's Edge, and that is called Olga's Cantina. Sarah, why don't you tell the public about our experience at Olga's Cantina?
It was amazing. Okay. So for real, it was okay. You have to have a reservation. It is extremely popular. We had not seen the inside of the restaurant prior to making our reservation, but now that we've been there once before, I can kind of tell you more about what's inside. They do have a really cool DJ that is an astromech of some sort. Did I say that right?
Not the
Robot.
astro. So the dude that's in there is the droid that used to be part of Star Tours. He used to be the guide from there, and then they moved him over to Galaxy's Edge.
droid is the word I was looking for. I just couldn't think for some reason. I thought astromech. But yes, so they have a really cool droid who is the DJ for the bar. So they got their Star Wars music bumping. There are some booths that are kind of cut into the wall. Again, it's a lot of stone wall textures, and it kind of like you're in a cave again. It's kind of a repeating theme throughout the whole Galaxy's Edge area that I've noticed. But you are not guaranteed one of those booths unless you have a giant group or children. Uh, we had to stand up at a very long, skinny table with other strangers. That's right, you get to stand with strangers. There's no bar stools, and you have to share your table with people you don't know. This is an introvert's kind of worst nightmare. Um,
This is true.
but you are going to a Star Wars bar, so I guess it's a little bit of what do you expect when you're going to a bar. People don't normally go to a bar to be alone. So I guess take that with a grain of salt. I just thought it was really strange that, you had a reservation for a restaurant that mostly serves drinks, but there are a couple food items, yet you don't get a choice to sit. We asked if we could have one of the booths that was empty because nobody had sat there yet. And I believe they told us we could have it if we waited an extra hour. So, with your timing as tight as it is when you're down there, didn't really have time for that. So, we just took the table and stood at the table. Some of the drinks. So, they have a very wide variety of drinks between mixed drinks or beers and ciders. I'm not really familiar with their wine selection. Nobody from our group ordered any wine. I'm not sure if they have wine or not, but I gotta imagine they have some sort of wine available. One of the drinks that we got was a fuzzy tauntaun. So that's kind of a fun name, but it had a fuzzy foam on the top, which was supposed to turn your tongue numb or your lips numb.
It was weird.
I don't know that it necessarily made it numb. It wasn't like you just got out of the dentist office getting cavity filled, but it did make your lips and tongue tingle a lot. It definitely was an interesting sensation to have. I would definitely recommend trying at least one of those or sharing one of those amongst your group. Flavor wise, I remember it being okay. It's a fruity drink. I'm not much of an alcohol drinker myself, so most alcohol drinks don't really appeal to me, but it was kind of interesting.
That's the
Um,
same for both of us.
One of the other drinks that we had there was a Rancor Tooth flight of beers to try, but beers slash ciders, I believe. So being that we're not really alcohol drinkers, we weren't really a super fan of the drink itself, but that does come with souvenir Rancor teeth shot glasses. So that was really cool to have to be able to take home. If you're doing any of the souvenir drinks, they serve it to you in the souvenir cups, but they give you a brand new, fresh, clean one that's boxed up in a box in packaging. That's your souvenir to take home. So you don't have to worry about taking home a glass that's all sticky from the drink you just drank from. So that's pretty nice. I remember I had an Endor drink from there too, that has a souvenir glass with Ewoks on it and kind of a tiki vibe on it. So that was pretty cool too.
Was that called the Yub Nub?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, that cup, at least from what I can see on their website, has since been either discontinued or they ran out of them because now they have a collector's cup of the Porg. So, I don't know if it's coming back, but I'm glad we got our hands on one. We do have a video on our channel that goes in depth with those products, so make sure to check that out as well. I do want to add also that one of the interesting things about the cantina is that, Sarah mentioned you need a reservation to get in because it's super popular, but also because it's super popular, you can only be in there for 45 minutes and then you got to get out. So it actually says that in your, like when you make the reservation, it's in the fine print that you can only be there for 45 minutes. So don't plan to be there, very long. Would you like to tell them what we ate there?
Yes, let's talk about the food. All
Your
right, so
favorite.
There are, I believe, two food options. Think of them more as like appetizers or sharing plates. The one that we tried, and I don't know the name, but it's basically a Star Wars version of a charcuterie board, right? So there's some meats, some cheeses, and some crackers, and some like olives and those types of things. Um, it was definitely interesting. It was not something that I would necessarily order again. Um, a lot of the flavors were just really out there, which I guess, again, what do you expect? It's Star Wars. It's supposed to be different. If it was just bland cheese and crackers, well, then it wouldn't be very fancy or cool or Star Wars like, right? So it's supposed to be different. But like I remember the meats being kind of like a weird spicy flavor, and some of the cheeses tasting a little different or funky. Um, there were some crackers that were pretty plain that I think were probably my favorite part just because, it tasted more normal. Um, would you agree on the food? Was there a favorite part of the food that you liked?
There really wasn't anything that was a favorite. It was more of a I'm trying this because of the experience. It also kind of goes along with the whole reason I think we even went to the cantina. One, we knew about some merch that we wanted from there, and you can only get it from there. So like the Ewok glass and the Rancor teeth, you had to order those with the drinks. You could not walk up to the place and say, "Hey, can I just buy that and not get the drink?" Well, I guess you could do that, just not drink the drink, but you have to pay the same price. Um, so I was there for the merch, not the drinks. But it was interesting to experience and taste some of those drinks that they have. I feel like I remember one or two of the beers that I liked, but not enough to where I want to go back and get it again, kind of a thing. Um,
I will say about that food board, that charcuterie board, not that it was a meal necessarily, but it was a nice size snack for the four of us that were there. So it is quite a bit of food, in terms of the ability of sharing. It's not like each one of you needs your own board unless that's your entire meal.
yeah, I would agree. Some other cool aesthetics. One that I remember in particular is a lot of the things where they pour the alcohol drinks out of. They are the head of an IG unit. So, like if you remember in The Mandalorian, IG-11, it's his head. So,
You're talking about the beer taps.
yeah, yep. So they have a lot of those around there. I've heard that little event things happen every now and then, like a stormtrooper might walk in looking for somebody or act like they've seen the resistance or just little things that kind of add to the feel of you being in Star Wars while you're in the cantina. Um, we didn't get to experience any of that kind of stuff yet, but uh, it is pretty cool to actually experience once. I would at least recommend going once and then just kind of seeing how you feel. If you are into trying different types of alcohols, definitely check that place out. They have a ton of them. Um, I would not necessarily go there specifically for the food. I think there's better options to um, use for your meals, so to speak.
I would agree.
All right, so that covers the food section, at least from what we have experienced. So right after this, we will be talking about probably one of our favorite parts of Disney in general, and that is the merch. So we'll be right back. Have you ever wondered what it's like to grow up during the prequel era? Do you wonder what type of merchandise was around then? How different was it than it is now? Check out our videos on this channel where we talk about the merchandise of the Phantom Menace and the merchandise of Attack of the Clones. They are here on this channel. The Phantom Menace is my first video ever on YouTube, so there's a special place in my heart for that one. So please, if any, check that out. Now back to our show. Okay, we're back with our final segment of today's podcast, and that's talking about the merchandise from Galaxy's Edge. And this is what excites me quite a bit. If there's one thing that I love to do when I'm at Disney, it is shop, shop, shop. And I know one of the last times we went, we spent way too much, particularly at Galaxy's Edge. Um, so I mentioned the market earlier when we were talking about the popcorn and stuff. You can also buy different types of merchandise there as well. Um, they're kind of like different little hole in the walls, so to speak, as you go through this little walkway of a market. Some of the things that are the big highlights that you can get from there. A lot of people like to get the little like creatures that go on your shoulders, and you can control them. You can get a Kowakian monkey lizard, also known as the little dude that is Jabba's pet. Um, you can get one of those. You know, they move their heads and whatnot, and make their little funny laughs. So there's like a section with animals or creatures from Star Wars where you can get also plushies, um, different forms of those creatures as well, like different toys. There is a section where you can get, I don't remember, I think it was actually in Bad Batch as well. There's like a certain style of toys, like figurines that are shown in the show. They're like little wooden doll characters. They have a whole bunch of these at the market. We have not gotten one yet. Maybe we will sometime in the future, just because it's kind of cool to have that style of a figure. Our channel is known for getting Black Series figures from Hasbro. Um, but they do have those. They have different models of the spaceships that you can get. Um, just a wide variety of things that you can get from the market itself. It's probably, I would say, it's a good mix of stuff, but I don't think it's the most expensive. There's a different place at Galaxy's Edge where there are really expensive items, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
There
Uh,
was one shop in the market that had, think of like costume wear, like
okay,
different shirts and jackets and things that are more resemblant of what you would actually see in the movie. So it's not like it just says Star Wars plastered on your shirt. It's more like you're wearing a legit Jedi robe. Um,
yeah.
those can get a little pricey.
Yeah, they have robes. They have the Jedi robes. They have Sith robes. They also have like a couple of different things that Rey wears in the sequel trilogy. Personally, I think they're really cool, but they are pricey. I think the Rey adult, uh, I don't know if it's a vest, but what she wears in The Last Jedi is like $80 or something. So yeah, you can get really cool things like that. You can get the Emperor's cane. That's also super cool. Uh, but before we talk about the more expensive store, there are a couple of other places where I would consider them stores because one of them does have a store built into it. There's the Droid Depot, which is an experience we went to where you can build a droid and they have a shop in there. And the second one is building a lightsaber. So, Sarah, would you like to talk about what we went through with those two things?
Yeah, so both of those, at least when we went, required reservations. I'm not sure how far out you have to reserve it, like if they're up to doing next day reservations or if you're still having to book months in advance. That I'm not sure on. But you do need to make reservations for these two activities. One is, I'm going to say, a lot more immersive than the other. Um, but I'm going to start with the droid one. So you have your reservation, which is really kind of just a reservation to be able to get in line at the store.
Isn't
Um,
that getting kind of annoying lately?
you would think it'd be your reservation to actually start building, but no, that's just your reservation to get in line, which was a little frustrating for us because we had reservations for the Droid Depot, the lightsaber experience, and Olga's Cantina, and having three reservations all in one day, where some of them aren't, the activity doesn't start right at your reservation time. It can be pretty nerve-wracking trying to fit that many different things in all in one day. But focusing more on the actual droid depot. There is the side shop, like he talked about. You don't need a reservation to shop in that little side store. You just need a reservation to do the build your own droid activity. So once you have gotten through your queue or your wait in line, if you will, they will give you a tray. You have to say which style unit you want, so they know which main body piece to give you, whether it's more like a BB unit or like an R2D2 type unit. And then you are placed in front of a belt that's continuously moving with parts. Think of like the belt at the grocery store, right? Except instead of groceries coming down, it's parts for your droid. Um, so it's pretty cool. You get to pick through and find which pieces you want, which shape headpiece you want, which colors you want. Then once you have your basket of parts, you get to go to a cast member who will assist with putting all the pieces actually together. They'll tell you, use the drill in this spot, use the drill in this spot, test this button here, see if your unit will like wake up and come alive and do, turn left and right. You can enter little personality chips if you so choose to purchase those. Those are additional pricing. Um, I remember we picked, what did we pick? Sassy?
Yeah, we picked Sassy.
Because we thought it'd be fun to make the robot sassy, or the droid, if you will. Sorry, excuse me. Um, which I don't know that it necessarily makes it control any different. I think it's more just the noises it makes.
I would agree.
But uh, it's a very cool experience nonetheless. I would definitely recommend doing it once. You're allowed one other person to go with you, so the two of us were allowed to go together for one robot or one droid. Sorry, I keep saying robot.
First of
Um,
all, how dare you? No.
but in the end, they give you a little box to put it in, kind of like a Build-A-Bear. You have a little box to carry it around in. That way it doesn't get damaged. So that was, and then of course, just like at any ride, it dumps out into the gift shop, and that's where the rest of the Droid Depot is, that anybody can go in and walk through. Is there anything else that you wanted to note on that?
Um, well, one thing that was from our experience in particular is that when they were checking to see if the droid was working properly, ours actually didn't at first. And so we had to like completely redo it with a different like central uh, piece, so to speak, the thing that makes it run, the motor. So we had to tear it all apart and put it back together. So make sure that it's working properly before you leave. That way you don't leave and then they're like, sorry, when you come back. Um, Also, you mentioned like the Build-A-Bear box thing. That is how it started, and that's how it was when we were there. But I have heard as of recently, they have like new backpack things that you can buy and haul your droid around in. Like the little top of the bag comes out, so your droid can, peek out and see what's going on in the galaxy. So that's kind of a new cool thing that's come out. And also, there's a whole bunch of droid type stuff in the store. Like it's not necessarily all part of the experience, so to speak. Like you can buy droid figures, you can buy like we mentioned there is like a DJ dude at Olga's Cantina. You can buy that DJ as a Bluetooth speaker, which is super cool. It's like 12 or 15 inches tall. Really, really cool. Shirts, apparel, hats, all you can think of that are droid associated, you can get at that shop. So just want to emphasize that it's not just, going back there to get different parts for a droid you built. You can actually go there and buy other cool stuff.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool experience. The other one that we did was Savi's workshop. Hopefully I said that one right. But
Yeah.
that's the lightsaber workshop. That one also you need a reservation for. But this one works a little different because you're not just waiting in line. You are waiting for the rest of your group to get there because they send you in groups of, I want to say 10 to 12 people. So you get there at your reservation time, but if there's a handful of people from your reservation time that are late, you kind of got to wait for them. So do your best to be a good person and get there early if you can. That way everybody's not waiting on you. Um, uh, But yeah, once you have your group of like 10 to 12 people, again, this is you go in to build your own lightsaber. You're allowed one person to go with you, just like the droid depot. So with Jeremy and I each building our own. The other two people from our party were both able to come in and watch and partake in the little ceremony, if you will. There is a very large table. It's almost like an oval shaped bar, if you will, with somebody standing in the middle. Except instead of a bartender, he's more like the workshop owner. And it's kind of like you're in just think of like a car shop or a repair shop in terms of you're in the nitty gritty. You get to build your own lightsaber. You are there to put the pieces on yourself. It's very easy. It's not like you need a whole lot of skill. I just mean more or less of, it doesn't seem like it's for children. Not that a child couldn't do it, but it has a level of sophistication. And part of that I think is the main guy that was running it, he had a lot of passion for his work, and he really made it seem like you were there to help become part of the Jedi of some sort, even if you chose the red crystal for your lightsaber, Jeremy.
I'll talk about that in a minute.
um but I give mad props to the guy that was there when we were there, who was running the show, because he just did such a phenomenal job giving his speeches about what you're there for, what each of the different elements mean, because you get to choose if you want yours to be more do you remember what the different ones are? I remember one was power, one was
Power, elemental, and I want to say guardian. I don't
one
remember.
of them was maybe justice.
Once again, we remember the ones that we did.
I want to say there's four different types you get to pick from. And by types, I mean more like, mine was more nature themed. So I got to choose from more nature themed parts. Mine was more like wood grains and sleek pieces of metal, whereas some of them were more shiny metallic kind of looking because they're more uh, futuristic style. But once you pick whatever section of pieces you want to go through, and you can see them online, so you can have an idea ahead of time what style pieces you're interested in for your lightsaber. But you get to pick there's two halves of the main handle piece, if you will, and then there's a top piece, and then there's a bottom piece. So there's altogether, four different sections you get to choose parts for, I
Yeah,
think.
I think so.
Um, but yeah, you get to choose the different pieces for those. You get to choose which color crystal you put in yours. The staff members there, or the cast members, will help you if you need any help with your assembly. They'll help you with putting in the actual saber piece. And then, the ending of the ceremony is everybody turning on their lightsabers all at once and everybody seeing what color everybody in the room chose for their lightsaber. And they do give you, or at least when we went, although I heard at one point they ran out of these, so I'm not sure if they still have them or not, a protective sleeve to put them in. So that was nice to be able to have something to carry them around in, because they are, what, like 3 feet long or something like that.
Yeah, they're
So
pretty. I think the blade is 3 feet long.
yeah,
So,
and you're not allowed to just whip them out anywhere in Disney, because they don't want you to be confused with cast members or creating fights by hitting people with them or anything like that. So you're supposed to keep them in their holster or in their casing when you're out and about and not in the workshop. Um, so that's why you won't see just people randomly with lightsabers everywhere, but you might see them with these long black tubes, because that's what you'd hold the lightsaber in when you're not in the workshop.
and probably a good thing to mention if you are flying into Florida and going on your trip. What we did is when we got to our flight to come home, we brought them on the plane, and then they put our lightsabers in the coat area. So rest assured, your air flight or airplane people should be able to take care of you. Um, one,
Yes, you do bring it on the plane with you. And you might have to ask the flight attendant to put it in the coat closet, but They didn't seem to have any problem. It seemed like they'd all done this many times before.
Oh yeah, they it was like they saw us and they saw what we had and they were like, "Hey, I'll put it up here," you know.
Just put something on your casing so you know which one's yours, because otherwise the cases all look the same. And we were
Right.
actually on a flight with somebody else that also had one. So we put our magic bands around the handles of ours. That way we could quickly know whose was whose and we didn't accidentally take that guy's home and have him take ours home.
Right. A couple of things I wanted to add to that part real quick. One, when you go to check in, you're actually able to see the parts there, like they have a pull-out drawer, and you decide what type of hilt you want to build right then. Because, like for example, I said I want to do power and control, so I got like a little pin that you have to put on your shirt, so then when you walk into the experience, they see your pin and they know which tray to pull out and give to you when you're building your lightsaber. Um,
You
the
do
other
get to keep that pin too.
yes, it's a souvenir. Thank goodness, because it's like 260 or $270 a person to do this. Um, but also, one of the really special things about these lightsabers, not only are you building them yourself, but if you deconstruct these lightsabers and put a different crystal in, you can change the color. And so, one of the cool things was they were walking around with this big thing full of crystals, and you got to choose which one you wanted to put in your lightsaber with all the different colors. I really enjoyed that part. One thing I do want to mention real quick also about my experience, because Sarah was hinting that I had a red lightsaber. I was somewhat nervous to be picking a red lightsaber because it's a Jedi ceremony, so to speak. But I thought it was interesting because uh, the main guy that's walking around, he came up to me and I was like, "Oh, what's he gonna say? What's he gonna say?" And basically, he just, said that, I would be a Jedi that had power and control, and I just had to make sure that I'm able to contain it, kind of a thing. So he said it almost in a way of a Jedi could have a red lightsaber, and you're not like singled out from everybody else. And there was other people that had red lightsabers, so don't worry if that's what you're going for, do it. Um, the last thing I want to talk about is probably one of my favorite stores there, and that's one of the antique stores. I forget what the dude's name is. I apologize, but um, it's so and so's Antiques. And when you go in there, it doesn't actually look like a store right off the bat. There's like a huge mural. That's the word. That's out front, and then you have to like walk around it to actually go into the shop. This is where the more expensive stuff is. This is where, you can find busts of like different Sith Lords and Jedi that you see from the Jedi Temple and whatnot. Um, you can buy holocrons and also extra crystals for your lightsabers that you built. So, like if you built with a blue one, but you wanted to, change it to green when you get home, or just go back and forth, you can buy the crystals so that you can swap them in and out of the lightsabers that you built. So there's a whole wall full of those. Like I said, they have holocrons there where your crystals can interact with the holocrons. That's really cool. They're actually like, pretty big, I would say, like probably the size of my hand, top to bottom at least. Um, but the thing that I go there for is the legacy lightsabers. You've seen them on the channel in the past if you've been here for a while, but these are the lightsabers that resemble those from the movies and the shows. They are not able to be torn apart like the ones that you build, but they resemble exactly what they look like in the shows. Some of them have some sound differences from the shows, so look up the different ones on YouTube probably to make sure that it's what you want, simply because they're expensive. But I think they have probably at least 10 different ones when you're there. I think the last time we went, we bought Ahsoka, um, Ventress, and probably somebody else. We spent a lot of money there. It was a little ridiculous for us. But they are getting new ones all the time. I will say there was one that was put to a vote, um, and it was Cal Kestis lightsaber from Fallen Order, and that did come out recently. And I'm really hoping when we go to Disney, that they have that. Uh, we'll let you guys know in the future. But uh, yeah, so that's our talk on Galaxy's Edge, where we talked about, the rides, the food, the merch, all the good stuff that you can do there. Um, but that is it for this podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to not only subscribe to the channel, but drop us a like if you liked it. Drop us a comment letting us know your experiences at Galaxy's Edge. And yeah, if you want to look forward to the next Shoot the Sheev podcast, turn your notifications. That way you are notified when the next one drops. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.